When we think of engineers, we picture some of the brightest minds out there, literally building our future. But there's this hidden crisis that's derailing their education before it can even really get started. And that crisis? It's math. So today, we're going to dig into why this one subject acts as this great filter, stopping so many promising engineers dead in their tracks. And get this, the scale of the problem is just staggering. 40%. That's the share of students who start an engineering degree but never actually finish it. And when you dig into the reasons why, one thing comes up over and over again. They hit a brick wall in their required math courses. This isn't just a few students having a tough time. It's a massive systemic leak in the pipeline for our future innovators. Now, for a long time, the explanation for this was pretty simple, and honestly, it was widely accepted. These early math classes, like calculus, were just seen as weed-out courses. The whole idea was, look, if you can't handle the tough theoretical math, you just don't have what it takes to be an engineer. It was treated like a rite of passage, an intentional barrier to entry. But that leads us to the big question, the one that really drives everything we're talking about today. What if that filter is broken? What if it's not just weeding out students who aren't cut out for it, but it's also filtering out perfectly capable, promising engineers who are actually being failed by the system itself? Okay, so to really understand how this filter might be broken, we've got to first look at how it was even built. Let's explore the culture and the history that turned mathematics into the #1 gatekeeper for a career in engineering. So what exactly is this weed-out culture? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's when those intro courses are deliberately made so incredibly difficult that they just thin the herd. And the research on this is really clear. This kind of approach doesn't affect everyone equally. It pushes out way more women and students from minoritized groups who might be just as capable but are more likely to be discouraged by early bad grades. The result? A less diverse engineering workforce. Now here's where it gets really interesting. One of the biggest reasons for all this failure is actually hidden in plain sight, right inside the university's own structure. It's this deep philosophical clash between the two departments that are supposed to be working together on this, the math department and the engineering department. And this table just lays out the divide perfectly. I mean, look at their goals. The math department is all about abstract logic, proofs, understanding the deep why, but the engineering department, they just want a practical tool to solve problems. They're focused on the how. This difference trickles down to everything, the tools they use, how they test students, everything. So you end up with students learning math in one world, and then they're expected to apply it in a completely different one. It's no wonder they're confused. Let's make this super concrete. Take a basic concept, a derivative. In math class, you learn it's the tangent slope of a function. It's a very abstract, geometric idea. But then you walk over to your engineering class, and suddenly a derivative is a rate of change, something real-world like velocity or electrical current. It's the same name, the same formula, but it's like they're talking about two completely different things, and the poor student is stuck in the middle trying to bridge that gap all by themselves. So on top of all these big institutional problems, there are also these really powerful barriers happening right inside the students' own minds. These are the cognitive and psychological hurdles that can trip up even the most brilliant and dedicated student. First up, you've got the preparedness gap. You have students who show up with straight A's from high school, thinking they're totally ready for college-level math. But when you give them diagnostic tests, you find out they're actually pretty shaky on the fundamentals, the algebra and trigonometry that form the absolute bedrock of calculus. So they might understand the new calculus concept, but they fail the test because they mess up the basic algebra needed to actually solve the problem. And then there's math anxiety. And look, this isn't just about not liking math. This is a real, measurable psychological response. It's this feeling of dread and tension that literally interferes with your brain's ability to solve math problems. It's incredibly common, and it's a huge predictor of which students are going to struggle. So how does this actually work? Well, it's a really vicious cycle. It all starts when a student hits a tough problem. That triggers anxiety, which leads to intrusive thoughts like, oh no, I'm going to fail this. Those thoughts literally hijack the brain's working memory, the part you need to solve the problem. With less brain power available, performance drops, which of course just makes the anxiety worse for the next problem. It's a devastating feedback loop. Okay, this next part might be the most fascinating piece of the whole puzzle. It's a phenomenon that researchers call knowledge transfer, or the lack of it. It's this baffling situation where students can perfectly solve a math problem in one class, but are totally stumped when asked to use that exact same math in a different class. All right, so picture this. In calculus class, a student gets a problem like this. Find the area under the curve of y equals x squared. It's a totally standard integration problem. They know the steps, they do the calculation, no problem. But then, fast forward to the next semester. They're in an engineering class, maybe physics or statics, and they get this problem. Find the centroid of a rigid body. Now, this looks completely different. It's not about an abstract curve, it's about a physical object. So, did you catch it? Did you realize those are fundamentally the same mathematical problem? Yeah, most students don't either. For them, the knowledge is just stuck in one place. It's siloed. They just can't seem to transfer what they learned in an abstract math context over to an applied engineering one. And this chart here really shows you why that happens. The very language changes between departments. The imaginary unit is I in math class, but suddenly it's J in electrical engineering, just because I is already used for current. Variables go from abstract letters like X and Y to real-world physical units. Integration stops being about area and starts being about accumulation of mass. It's like trying to speak a new dialect of a language you thought you knew, but nobody gave you the dictionary. Okay, so after all of that, I know it sounds a little bleak, but here is the good news. Universities are finally starting to recognize these problems, and they're coming up with some really innovative solutions. They're actually rebuilding that bridge between math and engineering, and honestly, the results are incredibly promising. Take the right state model, for example. Instead of just throwing every freshman into the traditional calculus meat grinder, they created a whole new math course designed specifically for engineers. It lets students build up their physical intuition first, on real engineering problems, before they dive into all the abstract theory. And the result? They have doubled their engineering graduation rates. Doubled them. And of course, technology is playing a massive role here too. You have these AI-powered learning platforms that can act like a personal tutor for every single student. They can pinpoint exactly where a student is struggling, like that shaky trigonometry, and then serve up targeted exercises and real-time feedback. Studies are showing these kinds of adaptive systems can boost student performance by as much as 25%. Which really brings us to our final big picture question. The problem might not be the students at all, but the path that we force them to walk. So if we can redesign that path with smarter courses and personalized technology, maybe, just maybe, we can finally stop filtering for so-called math people and start focusing on what really matters, building great engineers.